So I'm going to talk about location intelligence from imagery. So this is about uh, capturing different kind of imagery and deriving insights from there that will help our tracking, creating maps, and improving our location accuracy. So there are three types of imagery we can talk about. One is from satellite photos. Historically, this has been, people have launched this large, very accurate satellites, and there'll be probably one or two by each company, and they would take a image once every few weeks, and then you'd get this really accurate, nice image of the area. But what has changed is now there are companies who have constellation of satellites, and say you have 100 satellites, and combine all of them, you are able to take an image of any given area every day at high resolution. And this presents really interesting applications where you can use this imagery for doing interesting things. The other things that's really exciting is drone imagery. So satellite imagery would, with a single image, you can cover, say, part of a city, multiple neighborhoods. But the resolution is kind of gives you more local uh, uh, determination of what the area looks like. If you want to get a better perspective, you can use drones, which fly much lower. You get much higher resolution, and you can see features which are not visible from satellites. The third kind of imagery is from street level, and this is really useful for hyperlocal applications where you have cameras from the street, either from dash cams or from 360-degree cameras or geotag photos that allow you to extract stuff that you're seeing from the imagery and use that for your mapping applications. Next slide, please. Can we move to the next slide, please? Yeah. So there are three kind of broad applications of deriving intelligence from imagery. And this satellite image has been around for a long time. And historically, how you extracted intelligence from it was using really vision-based and segmentation-based techniques. And this was not very effective at really finding objects at scale and with accuracy that is really useful. But what has changed really in the last few years is the advent of AI and ML techniques that has really allowed us to do feature extractions at much higher precision. And there is a lot of hype around AI and ML, but I've seen that in the area of extracting intelligence from imagery, this has really proven to be a game changer. So now you're able to extract features of road buildings, say cell phone towers or windmills, wind turbines, etc., very accurately from satellite imagery and at scale. The second kind of application is I talked about the frequent revisit of the satellites. Now you're able to kind of image an area at a much regular cadence. So you can do change detections. So you can say this area had looked like this yesterday, it's changed this today, and by doing the feature extraction, you can say this has changed. And people are doing it for monitoring construction projects, mining, etc. The third kind of interesting application is monitoring. And this is again a combination of the previous two applications where you are able to monitor an area, extract features, do some intelligence, and derive insights out of this. Applications, examples of this would be there are companies who say we will monitor ports and count the number of containers every day. And every day you get, say, in this port, this many containers every day. And this kind of allows you to determine economic activity, for example. Similarly, people say we will monitor parking lots and count how many cars are outside supermarkets. And you could do it every day and can get an idea of how the business is doing. And so this is kind of a combination of all this. And with this, you can derive intelligence out of it. Next slide, please. To kind of give you a flavor of what this looks like, I want to show you a really cool demo. There's a company called Descartes Lab. They have put together this demo where they've taken the public domain imagery, aerial imagery for continental US. This is a high resolution imagery at 1 meter resolution provided by US Department of Agriculture. And they've tiled it. And for each tile, they've done a feature extraction and determined a kind of signature of what that tile looks like. And what this allows you to do is, say, when you select a tile, it goes and finds similar tile in this vast database of images. And that allows you to do things like, I want to find features that look like this. It allows you to go and find other things. And this is kind of really showcases the state of the art in the image extraction techniques. So can we go to the next slide? You'll see the demo. So what this is showing is you're zooming in and clicking here on this parking lot. And on the left side, you'll see all the similar parking lot images it found in the database. And on top, you'll see the map where these are the locations where the parking lot were found. So really cool, you can kind of do visual search. And this is, you can spend hours kind of playing with this. Another example is you can say, I'm interested in waterfront properties. You select something that looks like that, and it's going to find similar tiles from the database. You can see where those are located. So really cool demo. You can search for geo-visual search and play with this. But what this shows you is the power of this technique where you can derive information out of imagery and use it to really see how this data is distributed. Next slide, please. So I want to kind of do a case study and see how this techniques have been used for creating maps. You might be familiar with this project called OpenStreetMap. Everybody knows about Google Maps, but Google Maps is proprietary. It's created and licensed by one company. So there is a need for kind of an open database of base data where anybody can use. So this project started, and you can kind of see an analogy of Wikipedia for map data, where it's a free and open editable map for the entire world. Anybody can contribute, and the resulting data is freely available to anyone. And this is primarily done by volunteer mappers, but there is a huge amount of machine generated data that assists the mappers. And just to give you a scale of this, it's a really big project, and there are a lot of big tech companies also involved, as you'll see. And for a given day, you can see the map globally gets like up to 5 million changes. So you can see the kind of volume of changes that are being made to this living, breathing map. And a lot of it is assisted by this machine learning techniques, which are extracting intelligence from imagery. Next slide, please. So one of the data that you can extract from imagery is building footprints. And Microsoft did this project where they took all their imagery that they had for big maps and built a neural network to identify buildings. And you can see in the first image on top that you can kind of classify the image, segment it, and find out which of the pixels are buildings. And in the second step, you need to clean that up. The way you clean this up is by providing some constraint, such as, say, in a building, an edge has to be a minimum of, say, 3 meters. So smaller edges have to be eliminated. And the successive edges, if you go from the edge 1 to 2, the angles is likely to be 90 degrees. So if you put such constraints, you get this nice clean polygons out from the imagery, and you can scale this up. So Microsoft did this work, and they released this 125 million buildings for the US. There was a nice New York Times article that said a map of every building in the US. And it kind of shows you the nice patterns around urbanization, etc. And they did similar work in Canada and Africa. And all of this data is available. It's open data, and much of it's been imported into OpenStreetMap. Next slide. Similarly, Facebook has this big effort. Facebook is actually using OpenStreetMap for all of the properties for the mapping needs. And so they have an incentive to make sure this data is fresh, up to date, and accurate. So they did this this project called Maps with AI, where they are extracting road network from imagery. They are using aerial imagery, satellite imagery from Maxar to determine which of the areas have roads. And as new imagery comes in, they would detect those and have this road network. The way they're doing it is interesting. They are using a combination of deep learning and weakly supervised training techniques. One key insight that they found is that when you are training, you have training data, and you want to train a model to identify roads. If you give a training data that is pixel perfect, where you can say this pixels are exactly roads. What happens is that the way roads are in different parts of the world are different. The way the road width can change. The satellite imagery resolutions are different. The satellite images also have built-in inaccuracies. If you have this pixel perfect model really doesn't perform well. And at the bottom left, you can see the model that was kind of built locally, and you try to apply it to different parts. It doesn't work well. It identifies a lot of roads which are not really roads. So what they did was they kind of intentionally, the training data is noisy and imperfect. And the model kind of learned to figure out what is the general pattern of the road look like. And that resulted in a much better model, which you can see on the bottom right, which identifies the road correctly. So all of this extracted data is available in OpenStreetMap. Human mappers can view it, validate it, and add it to the map. Next slide, please. Another kind of interesting example is the street level imagery. There's a company called Mapillary, which provides the tools and techniques for capturing street level data and extracting imagery out of it, intelligence out of it. So this is an example of somebody collecting data from the car, and once it uploads to Mapillary, it identifies, say there's a no parking sign, and puts it on the map so that mappers can go and say, hey, there's a potential no parking sign. You can see the imagery and they use classic vision-based techniques to do this. They can also segment the image into a road or a driveway or a sidewalk and assist the mappers in creating this. Now, all of this imagery that is collected is also available for OpenStreetMap. So this kind of gives you a flavor of what are the kind of applications that extracting location intelligence from different kind of imagery enables, and it results in kind of a much better, more accurate real-time map that is on OpenStreetMap. So that's all I have. I will hand over to Pratnya to take it further.
Thanks, Ujjwal. That was quite interesting. And of course, I've known you for a while, so I know about many of this work that you've been doing. So very interesting stuff. And thanks for covering the open source and various other aspects of it as well, right? So now in the last part, what I would like to do is that I talked about collecting the GPS traces and cleaning up the data to sort of, we have a good data set there. And we got the underlying road network and the building information from what Ujjwal talked about in his satellite imagery part, right? Now, how do we tie these two together? How do we determine the intersection in order to solve some of business problems, right? So Swiggy, of course, has it. Many other companies in the local and hyperlocal space have similar problems. So I'll talk about two problems here, and I can see that there's a third question also on the business problems that has come in a similar direction. So we'll answer that at the end in the Q&A. So the first problem we talk about is to accurately determine what route is the driver taking. Now, based on the GPS traces, I have some idea, but I have the underlying network. How do I tie these things together and actually look at what route the route was followed? So from a business perspective, there are various things that we need to see, right, to figure out whether this driver is taking the correct route, or are they taking a big detour? Are they making extra unnecessary detours for either restaurant pickup or whatever, right? So we want to avoid some of those. And the second problem we'll talk about is the is estimating, say, the average order volume, or estimating the supply or demand, supply of restaurants or demand from customers from certain geographic areas, right? So these could be polygons, like what Ujjwal has said. This could be a certain road. So how do we answer some of these business questions with the technology that, and what is the technology behind it? Can we go to the next slide, please? Okay. So let's first talk about the route problem, right? So given a set, the problem here is, given a set of GPS pings, what is the matching road that the driver must have taken? Now, this is a work, the Newson and Crumb paper that I'll talk about is actually a 10-year-old paper, but very interesting and still used in industry and academia as well. So we'll talk about that in a lot more depth and see how we could use it, right? So in the image over here, we see there are 3 GPS pings that are taken from, these are in sequence, taken from a driver, say, right? Now, if you think about the simplest algorithm to match the GPS ping to the roads, the simplest one would be to match it to the nearest road, right? Now, if we see that you're matching to the nearest road, what we'll see is that number 1 and 2, the GPS pings number 1 and 2 will be matched to the dark orange line, whereas the GPS 3 will be matched to the light orange line at the top. Now that is absolutely not the path that this person has taken, right? We can see that it's actually the gray circular loop kind of road that this person is taking. So how do we solve this problem in an automated way, right? So this paper goes through it step by step. So first thing is to eliminate outliers. Like I said, we have done the data cleanup, we have done the outlier elimination in our first part. Now, once we have the accurate pings, what they do is they model it as a hidden Markov model. Now, what do I mean by this? So each of these road segments are basically states in this HMM, right? And we basically compute the transition probabilities from one road segment to the other, and the history is taken into account here, right? The HMM will take that into account. So this is very sensitive to GPS accuracy. So we need GPS accuracy cleanup. It's also sensitive to sampling frequency. So say, for example, that our frequency is say once a minute, then we might very well have missed ping number 2 or 3, and then we have no clue about where the driver went next, right? So in the paper, they've shown that this is super sensitive to GPS accuracy. So just signals based on say cell phone tower or something will not work. We also want to ensure that the sampling frequency is between 1 and 30 seconds. Now, this will vary based on your battery constraints and stuff. They also talk about that. So what they have found is about 15 to 30 seconds should be good enough for us to make these kind of extrapolations, right? Or this kind of mapping. Very interesting paper, and there's an open source implementation of this, the use of HMM for map matching, that's in Graphhopper. What Uber has also done as part of its CatchMe is it's extrapolated, or it's extended it using the Viterbi algorithm such that they don't even necessarily rely on the underlying mapping layer to be perfectly accurate. Okay, so there are some variants there. I won't go into the depth here because I want to cover another problem right after this. Can we go to the next slide, please? Okay, so this is a very exciting slide, and since I'm now deep into the spatial space, many times we have this reaction. What is really so special about this space, right? Yeah, petabytes of data, many other systems also process it, but the crux here is that this goes much beyond text, right? I'll give you an example and then we'll walk through it in a more detailed way. Now, if you think of search, right? If I've worked in Google search, for example, if you're doing search over text, you have a clear index, your indexing, your pre-processing is basically indexing of the web page where you have a keyword to page index, and then in real time your retrieval of these keywords, of these pages based on these keywords, is much simpler. Now when you go to the geo space, there's absolutely no way that you can index all of the lat longs in this world, right? Or even a huge data set of lat longs. It's just impossible to index at that level, and it won't be accurate because of the GPS accuracy and other things, right? So how does the geospatial domain address this? So there's a paper from 1984 which basically talks about hierarchical indexing in this domain. So that's the R-tree. It's from UC Berkeley, where they do hierarchical indexing on a flat 2D projection of the Earth, right? So I'll go into detail about that in a minute. And then Google and Uber have come up with variants of this. So Google does S2 indexing, which is again hierarchical, and which does it on a 3D spherical globe, just so the accuracy is is better than the R-tree based approach. And Uber does it based on hexagonal cells, and they also have some accuracy improvements over what S2 is doing. We'll dive deeper into the hierarchical indexing in the next slide. Can we go to the next slide, please? Okay. So when we talk about spatial indexing, so I'll talk about the R-tree hierarchical indexing structure in the first place. So in the image over here, you see 3 high-level polygons, which is A, B, and C. So they do rectangular polygons and overlaps of them. And within each of these polygons, they have sub-polygons. So when they index based on what are called as bounding boxes. So the hierarchy is based on bounding boxes, and they form this hierarchy within a tree. So it's a tree-like indexing structure. Okay. So there's a PostgreSQL database extension called PostGIS, which is specific to this spatial domain. And they use this R-tree indexing, right? Spatial indexing. And they add support for things like what are called as point and polygon queries. Meaning, given a GPS ping location, can I tell that this is within the Embassy Tech Village polygon? This is a very difficult question to answer just based on lat long indexing, right? There's just no way you can do it based on an index which is just lat long based because of accuracies and other things that we talked about. So they add support for this indexing, and with SQL queries like stcontains and st-intersects, which basically do a polygon level search and intersection between multiple polygons in order to answer this. Now, coming back to our original business problem, right? That what is the say total orders that are coming from Embassy Tech Village. Now, for each of the GPS pings at that scale, we can basically query PostGIS using SQL to do this stcontains query, which does exactly this retrieval over the hierarchical index to determine whether a point lies within that polygon. Okay, and it's super useful. We also use it in many cases. So very interesting work. You should check out PostGIS if you're not familiar with it. So I think let's go to the next slide. I have a couple of minutes left, I think. So we've talked about a lot of these business problems as well as data cleanup and satellite. So some of this we are doing at Swiggy, some of this is coming up in the roadmap, but overall there are a bunch of interesting directions that we are going in, and some of the problems we have already solved. So especially around address accuracy based on the GPS pings, can we say cluster restaurant location pings or customer location pings to identify the actual accurate customer location? Can we determine these point of interest polygons, right? Can we determine apartment complexes? Can we do internal routing based on map matching within these point of interest polygons? So these are some of the exciting problems that we are working on, and we'll continue to work on. This is all I had. Thanks.